Our next guest is the filmmaker of a soon-to-be-released documentary called River's End, California's Latest Water War. Please welcome to the show, Jacob Morrison. Jacob, how you doing, man?
Good, thanks for having me.
So you're producing a documentary about the drought in California. That's got to be a really interesting experience. I know from personal experience myself in trying to find people to talk about the drought, there's a lot of people who have a lot of good information, but they're afraid to come talk about it. So you're the perfect person for us to chat with today about the drought in California. My first question is, based on the people you've been talking to, the stuff you've been shooting, how bad is it really? I think a lot of people think it's terrible. Some people think, it's no big deal. This has happened before. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the drought?
Well, on a scale from 1 to 10, unfortunately, I think I would have to say it's a 10.
10? It's as bad as it could be.
I think it's as bad as it can be. And I think people don't actually understand how bad it is. When you talk about drought actually has different meanings.
Okay.
And in one instance, drought can mean a lack of precipitation, so a lack of snow in the Sierras, which we're seeing right now.
Okay.
On the other hand, a drought can also be a lack of water based off of need, and we've actually been, in that sense, in a drought since the 70s, really because we've been mismanaging water very seriously. And today we're seeing lots of extinction. We're seeing the Delta smelt, which has been in the media a lot, but also Chinook salmon are going extinct, which affects lots of people's jobs. And we're also seeing communities right now with thousands of people without access to clean drinking water.
Communities that don't have access to water. In California?
In California.
Where?
So Porterville is one example. It's a small city, and basically they rely on groundwater for their water. So they don't get water from surface.
So well water?
Well
that type of
water.
thing? Okay.
And basically their wells have run dry. And a lot of that has to do with their own water use as well as surrounding water use of different agriculture, different, there's a golf course near there too that uses a lot of water. And simply there's too much demand for the water in the ground.
Wow. That's just an incredible situation to be in when you think about how much we need water, obviously, to make it. But let's be honest, California is mostly a desert. I mean, it's mostly a desert. So we've really brought water here. We've gone and we've sought water. I've seen some pictures online lately of different dams and stuff that, 3 years ago, this is what it looked like. Today, here's what it looks like. And it looks like there's nothing there. I mean, is it possible that this is so bad that it could cause major calamity in California?
Yeah, well, I think that right now, the way that we've been handling this drought has been based off of a short-term solution. We kind of tend to plan for the drought in these sort of 4-year cycles. And basically that doesn't lead to any sort of sustainable water management policy. And what we've been able to uncover in this film, which has been really amazing to me and really also sad and frightening, is that there really is no one out there in the government or in policy who's actively addressing a sustainable long-term water management system based off of what we've been learning from the different scientists and researchers that we've been speaking to about what would actually work. And right now we have a series of major extinctions occurring in the state of California. We're going to lose the Bay Delta area, which is sort of a signature ecosystem for California. I think it's sort of an equivalent to the Everglades, of California.
We're going to lose it.
And we're going to lose it entirely if we don't do something about it. And the people that don't have water in this drought, it's the same people that didn't have water in the last drought. So I think that, I think if we don't, really act now, we're going to lose the California that we know today.
Wow, that's crazy. But it makes sense because water is so important. So you said you've been talking to scientists, people who have solutions. What needs to be done? I mean, can it still be fixed? And if so, what do we need to do?
Well, yeah, definitely. And I think one of the first things we need to do is look at the way that we dole out water. Right now, 80% of the water that's used is used by the agricultural sector, and 20% is used by the cities. But that 80 and 20% make up 50% of the overall water in California. The other 50% is reserved for the environment. But the way that we do it right now is we have what's called a minimum requirement for the environment. And that basically sets the environment up for failure because we're giving the least amount of water we possibly can to a system to have like sort of a minimum amount of success in that ecosystem, which just doesn't work, and I think that's why we're seeing extinction.
It can't flourish. There's no way for it to flourish.
Exactly. So the first thing we need to do is, instead of dealing with it in terms of a minimum, would be to try to come up with some sort of solution about really allowing the environment first to have as much water as it needs, and then figure out from that how much water we have. I think another thing we need to do is look at our water rights system. So right now there are certain people who have access to water and can use as much as they want, some people that are sort of next in line, and this is all based off of policy that predates the gold rush.
Wow.
And merges Anglo and Hispanic law. So it, basically we're dealing with the consequences of a 19th century infrastructure in a 21st century world.
Wow. Tell me about the economics here. One thing that doesn't make a lot of sense about water, and if you go to different countries, you can learn this really quickly. Water is very expensive in a lot of places. In fact, if you go to Prague or the Czech Republic, for example, water costs more than beer.
Right.
Okay. So, but we don't have that here. Water it's really cheap. I mean, even people have swimming pools and stuff like that. They can operate it, and it's not that expensive for them to do it. Is there a problem there? I mean, have we not correctly designed the economics behind the use of water with the cost to the average person?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think that essentially a lot of the way that water is sort of doled out is it's basically taxpayer subsidized. California, and a lot of other Western states to be sure, but California in general, has been very good at getting a lot of money and essentially funding these giant state water projects, which provide water to people where water isn't at a very low cost so that they can grow things that really don't make sense to grow probably in an arid desert. And that's not to say that there's anything inherently evil about growing almonds or other tree crops in a desert or alfalfa. But it should be based off of an economics that makes sense based off of water availability. I do think that if we saw the economics matching with the amount of water we had, it probably would do a lot to fix this problem.
Yeah, I think that's the solution, right there, at least in the short term. If we need to put a Band-Aid on it, for now, stop the bleeding, would be to say, okay, let's appropriately set up the cost structure so that people who don't really want to have a swimming pool, they won't run one. They won't waste that water. People who don't really want to spend all that money watering and having a natural lawn will just get one of the drought-friendly, water-friendly lawns that you can get now here in California, which really everybody should have, frankly. This film, when will it be available for people to see?
So we're still in the midst of production, and actually, if you go online, our website's riversendfilm.com. You can follow our progress, and we've put up a blog so you can sort of see stories that we've uncovered and interviews that we're having with people. And the film probably will be released sometime in March. It's hard to know for sure right now since we're still in the process.
Sure.
But yeah, we're very excited about it.
What's the one thing that sticks out to you so far? I know you're still in the process of production. What's the one thing that you've learned or the one interview that you had, what's the one thing that really sticks out about the process so far to you?
Well, I guess I would just reiterate that when I began to decide to do this project, I thought, there really isn't a good documentary about the drought out there, and there isn't a good documentary about water in California out there. And initially that was just shocking because, what a huge topic.
Right.
But then as we began to dive into this project, we just couldn't believe what we were learning, and it almost is the kind of thing that you just couldn't make up. Like if I were to tell you that these sort of giant agribusiness corporations were lobbying and were influencing, our sort of most important politicians in California to create law that really is benefiting certain interests in the privatization of water rather than the good of the state or the good of the environment, I think it would just sort of sound fake. It would sound like some political thriller that I've come up with. And yet this is, what we've sort of found ourselves in. And I kind of just, again, am still in disbelief that this movie hasn't been made yet. But I do think, as you pointed out in the beginning, lots of people are afraid to talk about it. And I think that's also why this film is important to get done.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for being the guy to step up and make this film. Jacob Morrison, really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else, commercial free.